Hey my darlings, what's up? Welcome back. Today I'm going to show you how to make a delicious shepherd's pie recipe, alright? This shepherd's pie recipe is going to be oh so tasty, but most importantly, quick and delicious. Let's get it. First thing we're going to do is add our ground beef to the pan. I know you're probably saying, wait a minute, for those of you who know, right? You're probably saying, you're using ground beef, it's no longer a shepherd's pie. You're correct. Once you add ground beef, it's now considered a cottage pie. However, if you want to be traditional, you could definitely use lamb. But around here, we're not traditional. We just rock with what tastes great, all right? So for this recipe, ground beef it is. We're gonna start with breaking down our ground beef. I didn't add any oil because once the beef starts to render, we're gonna have more than enough oil. But in this situation, right, this is more of a lean cut of meat, so we don't have a lot of oil going on. However, I'm gonna take this time to add our onions. You could definitely rock out with sweet onions, regular yellow, white onions. Either way, it's gonna be good. We're also going to add some of our finely chopped garlic. If you have garlic paste on hand, add that. If you don't have any type of fresh garlic, you can definitely use garlic powder. We're going to combine the onions and the garlic with the ground meat. And we are going to cook our onions until they become nice and translucent. We're going to add our peas and carrots. You could definitely add some corn to this recipe as well. We're going to combine our mixed veggies along with our ground beef and onions. Now here's the thing, right? I went ahead and I opted for the frozen peas and carrots. However, if you want to use, let's say, fresh peas or fresh carrots, what you're going to do is, right, you're going to add it in at the same time as when you add the onions and the garlic. So that way it has a sufficient amount of time to cook and break down. Gonna add our tomato paste. Gonna combine that on in as well. And the tomato paste is not only gonna give it a nice flavor, but it's also gonna help with the color of the ground beef as well. It's going to definitely help with the presentation. At this point in time, we're going to add some flour. Adding the flour is going to work as a thickening base because we're also going to add some liquid later as well. All right, we want our shepherd's pie to stay intact. So adding the flour is definitely going to help with that. I'm going to start off with some Worcestershire sauce. This is going to bring a great deal of contrast of flavors. Definitely a staple in my kitchen. Worcestershire sauce and me are like best friends, all right? We're also going to add some of my all-purpose seasoning. This is just not salt, brown, black pepper, garlic powder, and onion powder. There's a lot of different ingredients within the seasoning, so it's going to be worth it as well. We're also going to add some rosemary. If you have fresh rosemary, you can definitely use that as well, along with our dried thyme. Feel free to use fresh thyme if you want to. We're also going to add a pinch of salt and ground black pepper. And we are going to deglaze. We're going to add some beef broth. Because we added our flour, it's going to thicken up even more. In the meanwhile, we are going to lower our flame and allow all of the flavors to marry. This is what the meat should look like, all right? This is the perfect texture. Nothing runnier or looser than this, all right? The flour helped to thicken it up, and this is perfect. We're going to strain our potatoes. Cool them down just a bit. We don't need it to be piping hot. When it comes to making our mashed potatoes, in order to get the most delicious potatoes, you gotta follow this recipe all the way through. Now here's the thing, this particular recipe is not gonna contain an egg, okay? With all the stuff going on with eggs, until they figure it out, we're not gonna use an egg, all right? That way it could be much more cost affordable as well. Now here's the thing, the good thing about the egg, if you are using the egg, all right, we're gonna have a little conversation. If you're gonna be using the entire egg, it's gonna help with the firmness of the entire shepherd's pie once we put it together. However, if you opt for only using the yolks, not the yolks, but the yolks, the yolk of the egg, it's going to help with creating a creamy like taste and texture when it comes to making your potatoes. However, like I said, with the whole egg thing, we're not even going to waste our time. If you're looking for creamy, melt in your mouth potatoes, right, that's still going to get the job done, we're going to use heavy cream. That's what you're going to use, heavy cream. With that being said, let's get it. All right, first thing we want to do is we are going to add some butter to our potatoes. Add a good amount of butter. Don't hold back unless you really have to. And we are going to use our potato masher to break down our potatoes. And another thing behind the cameras, I forgot to mention, if you are going to be using an egg, don't put the egg in the potato when it's in this state right here. You see the steam coming out? I'm gonna send it to you. See what I'm saying? Because what's gonna happen is your eggs are gonna get scrambled. So you wanna allow the potatoes enough time to cool off before adding that egg. Boil the potatoes for about 20 to 30 minutes or until fork tender. And that's as far as it goes. Now will be the perfect time to add some milk. Just a little bit at a time. This is where the science comes in. You don't want to add too much because once again, you're not going to be adding eggs, and you want to have the potatoes stay together, if that makes sense, right? This is not the time where we need runny mashed potatoes. Just a tad bit more, a little bit, that's it. All right, this should be good, all right? We want to be able to mold our potatoes. To bring out the flavors even more, pinch of salt and ground black pepper. Flavor it up as much as possible. Mix it on in. And one last final touch. We are going to add some freshly grated Parmesan cheese. This is going to give it a nice flavor. That's the thing, we're working with the contrast of flavors, all right? This is what brings out the taste or the flavors in every dish. You have the ground beef or the ground meat is what I should say, according to what you're going to opt for. And that has a depth of flavors. Not to mention your potatoes is going to have a different set of flavor. So you're not just going to be eating this bland meal, if that makes sense. Take our meat and place it to the bottom of this casserole dish. Remember, the meat goes first. This looks so good. And guess what? I tasted it off camera, and the meat is seasoned to perfection. Yes, it is. Woo! You know what I'm really appreciating about this ground meat is the hues of color, right? You see the pops of orange and green going on? This is definitely going to be a winner. Once all of the meat is spread out into the casserole dish, make sure you get all of those little nooks and crannies. All right, looking good. We're going to come in with our potatoes. Now, when it comes to the potatoes, right? When it comes down to the potatoes, this is the texture that we're going for. All right? You know what mashed potatoes look like. As you can see, this is not runny, it's not soupy, but it's just perfect enough for us to be able to mold our mashed potatoes. Just gonna spoon it on just like that. Now taking the back of our spatula. You know, I think I'm gonna swap the spatula for maybe a smaller spoon. But we're gonna act as if we're icing a cake. And we're just gonna spread our potatoes until it's nice and flat and every surface is covered. Another key trick, right? Let's say that you want to get that nice golden crust on top of your potatoes. You can definitely add some. You can take an egg and combine it with a small amount of milk, beat it really good, and brush it on top of your shepherd's pie. And that would create somewhat of a nice golden brown topping. All right, boom, that looks good so far. All right, we're gonna take our fork and we're just gonna drag it across the mashed potatoes, just like that. And it's gonna give some personality to this dish, okay? So when you take it out of the oven, it's not just mashed potatoes on top. You know, like I said, bring some personality to the dish, make it look presentable. Sprinkle on a little dry parsley. However, if you have fresh parsley, you definitely can add that. I'm just a little bit too lazy to chop up the fresh parsley. This is gonna go into our 400-degree Fahrenheit preheated oven, and we're gonna bake our shepherd's pie for about 20 to 25 minutes. I did allow it to sit for about 30 minutes to cool down, because when you cut into the shepherd's pie, you want it to sit in your plate. You don't want it to be loose and runny. It's all about presentation at this point. Let's see. Okay. Alrighty, alrighty. Check it out. Ooh, this is gorgeous. I'm cutting it with, like, listen, I want it to come out perfectly. And perfectly it did. Check it out. You see our layer of meat right there. We have a nice little crust going on, and that's simply from the Parmesan cheese. Even though we didn't add the egg, we have a nice yellow tone going on. Ooh, this is pretty. This is nice. This is nice. All right, let's see. Going for the big bite. Wow. Mm-hmm. Mm. 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 Absolutely delightful. This is so good. Let me tell you something. The potatoes, my loves, nice, smooth, rich, and creamy. The meat, saucy and perfectly seasoned. Mm-hmm. Wow, those little veggies that we incorporated, they ain't harming nobody. If you have those picky eaters, now would be the time to add all of the veggies to this recipe. I don't care if you have corn on the cob. Get that knife, get the corn off the cob, add the corn kernels, add whatever you have in the refrigerator. Incorporate it with the meat, and once it's seasoned up to perfection, you're good to go. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'm your girl Tammy, and I will definitely catch you with another recipe. Yeah, baby. Mm-hmm.